Welcome back to the Old Soul Millennial channel. You know, I love these 3.5 ton electric log splitters. To be honest, I think they're all made in the same factory. However, each manufacturer has some small variations that either make them a little bit better or a little bit worse. This is a built-hard unit. I've had it for about a year now, split probably 5 or 6 cords so far, and I tell you, I think this thing is worth its weight in gold. They're economically priced, you know, between $300 to $350 right now, I believe. They are light enough as to where one person could wheel it around the yard, and additionally, it will split through probably about 92% of the rounds that you put on the table on the first try. Those larger, knottier rounds, sometimes you have to reposition them, flip them around, and for the most part, about 99% of the logs I put up on this table, it's able to get through them one way or another. With that being said, I had a viewer recently request that I do a basic safety / operational video on these electric log splitters. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to go over the basic operation of this unit, and then I'm going to talk about some of the dangers and things to watch out for. Should make for an interesting video, so let's get started. So first thing we need to talk about is power supply. If you have an undersized outlet or power cable supplying your log splitter, it's not going to have the current it needs to power through some of these larger rounds. I believe the owner's manual states that you want to have at least a 15 amp dedicated circuit for the unit, and you want to have an appropriately sized heavy gauge extension cord. And it should be grounded as well. Because the outlet is outside, it also should be a GFCI outlet. So now let's go over the controls. The controls do require 2 hands. So we have a push button to start the hydraulic motor, and then we have a lever, and when you push this lever down while pushing down the button to start the hydraulic motor, that supplies hydraulic fluid to the ram, which in turn extends the push plate forward, and then, you know, your piece of wood goes against the wedge and it splits the wood. Now, some people defeat these safety devices. They'll put like a pin through the plastic right here to hold down the start button, and they'll add a foot pedal. So, you know, you push down on the foot pedal and then you have a hand operate the hydraulic lever. I do not recommend defeating the safety mechanisms on this splitter, because then, you know, you're not paying attention and you may have the temptation to put your hand in the way of danger, and you could very easily lose some fingers or a hand. So I recommend leaving the safety controls just the way they are. Also, you may find that over time, the motor, the hydraulic motor, does not want to start when you just push down on the button, like that. That's just the nature of these units. You know, after a while, they won't start on their own. So what you have to do is just hold down on the hydraulic actuator and then push down on the motor start button, and then the ram will extend forward. Also note that you can hold the ram in position by holding down the hydraulic lever. And if you want it to return, you would just lift up on that lever, and the ram automatically retracts back. Next feature I want to talk about is a big time saver, and it is this little device right here. I'm going to call this, I don't know, a return limit setting, or set bolt, a return limit set bolt, let's call it that. So basically what this does is it limits how far the ram returns back, right? So like the distance between the ram and the tip of the wedge, the push plate and the tip of the wedge is, I don't know, maybe 22 inches. So let's say you're split in 16-inch pieces. You know, you don't want to wait for that ram to retract all the way back and then extend all the way forward to engage with that 16-inch piece. So what this does is it allows you to limit how far back this push plate or piston returns. So I'm going to extend this forward just about to where it touches this 16-inch piece, and then we will set this, and you could kind of see what happens here. So I'm maybe an inch away from that 16-inch piece, you know, about 17 inches, which is good because there's going to be some variation between your pieces. So now I'm going to slide this forward, turn this bolt, and lock it on this rod. So there's 2 rods on either side of the piston. And now if I let go of the hydraulic lever over here, notice that the push plate doesn't return all the way back. And that's because this set bolt is holding the ram in position and preventing it from extending all the way back. So when I'm splitting 16-inch pieces, you know, I can go. It just speeds up the process. I don't have to wait for that ram to retract and then extend all the way forward to engage with the piece. So it's a big time saver. Very cold out today. You can hear the hydraulic fluid. It sounds like it's low, but it's the first time I'm splitting today. But you see, big time saver. Next thing I want to go over is how to check the hydraulic fluid and add hydraulic fluid, and also the purpose of this bleed bolt, this air bleed bolt. So you're supposed to have this bleed wing nut bolt cracked when operating the unit. Because we're operating the unit right now, we'll just crack it loose. See, it's a little bit loose, and that's how that should be. When we are transporting this unit around the yard or on a trailer or in a car or in the truck, you want to close this bleed screw to ensure that no hydraulic fluid comes at this bleed screw. So because we're using the unit, we're just going to leave that bleed screw cracked. So how do you check or add hydraulic fluid to the unit? Well, it's pretty simple. First thing you would have to do is stand the unit on its side. So if you look at the wedge handle, there's a black bolt right here. This black bolt would have to face up. This unit is very heavy. It'd be a good idea to have 2 people. But this black bolt is a dual purpose hole. For one, there's a dipstick attached to it, and this hole is also the oil fill hole. So you would turn the unit on its side, again, have that bolt face up, unthread the bolt, wipe the dipstick, drop it back in, and check to ensure the hydraulic oil is within, or well, between those 2 lines, and then add if necessary, tighten this up, and stand the unit back to its normal operating position. So now that we've gone over the basic operations and settings of this unit, we need to talk about some of the potential dangers, how to avoid them, and how to be safe while operating this unit. So before you even think about touching your splitter, safety glasses, hearing protection, and steel toe boots. So one of the most common dangers is obviously the log falling off the splitting tray and landing right on your foot. So I always recommend steel toe or composite toe boots. The next danger I want to talk about is that when these rounds or wood gets very dry, sometimes as it's being pushed through the wedge, there'll come a point in time where it just kind of explodes out of the splitting tray and it literally gets launched out of here. I've seen pieces of wood project off the splitting table, close to 10 feet. So there's a tremendous amount of power here, and just try not to have anything directly in front of the wedge, because if that happens, it's really like a projectile. So the final thing I want to talk about, and perhaps the most dangerous thing that could happen, is when you're splitting a piece of wood, the wood pops up on the push plate side and it comes right at you, in your face, towards your gut, or away from you, hopefully. But let's talk about why this happens. The reason this happens, why wood generally pops up out of the push plate end, is because there's an angled cut against the push plate side. This is smooth. There's no spikes. Honestly, there should be a spike or something here. But when you have an angled piece of wood like this, and this hydraulic ram is pushing and pushing this piece, and you have this slippery surface right here, and this angled cut, what can happen, and it has happened to me, is this literally pops up, and it can really hurt you if you're not careful. So the best way to prevent that is when you're deciding which way to put your wood in the splitter tray, ensure that the square cuts, the 90-degree angle cuts, go against the push plate. The angle cuts, put them against the wedge, because when it's going through the wedge, it's a sharp edge and it has to catch. On the back, again, you want to ensure that you just have a flat 90-degree angle cut. Now I'm going to try to have this piece of wood intentionally pop straight up. And this will be a good learning experience for everyone out there, because it should teach you that you should not have your face positioned directly over the piece of wood. And again, you don't want to have a hand on the wood, so that's why you don't want to defeat your safety mechanisms. So whenever I'm dealing with a sketchy piece of wood, I hold onto the controls, extend my arm back, and I will turn to the side to try and protect myself. Just in general, you do not want to have your face right over the splitting table. You want to stand back. So let's see if we can get this wood to pop up. I'm going to try and get it to pop up this way. All right, that one didn't work. So that one didn't pop, but I think I can also teach you another safety lesson here as well. Notice how the pieces started to split. You do not want to put your fingers in that open split. Additionally, sometimes the piece may get stuck on the wedge, and you do not want to put your fingers in between the end of the wood and the push plate. Notice how it's stuck? Well, there's a lot of tension right now, and sometimes pieces will get stuck in the wedge like that. How I dislodge those pieces is with a hatchet. You do not want to put fingers in between the piece of wood and the back plate when you have a piece kind of wedged open like this. So I'm going to tap this and watch how this piece springs back. That wasn't that extreme, but I think you get the idea. I've been trying to get a piece to pop up for about 10 minutes now. It looks like it's not happening right now, but again, here's a different viewpoint. Notice how it's slanted, it's sloped. This is not what you want. Because again, you know, you start driving this Ram forward, this could catch weird and it could just pop up and nail you right in the face or in the gut. So avoid having these angled pieces against the push plate. Against the push plate should be a square cut, and you want that to be flat. So we've spoken about wood popping off the push plate. The final thing I want to discuss is how to deal with large knotty pieces of wood, because you're going to run into quite a few of these. Here's my tip for you. When determining which way to position the wood on the tray, I try to put the knotty side against the push plate, because it's a lot easier for the wedge to start breaking into the straight grain side as opposed to this knotty side. So I'm going to try and split through the knotty side of the wood right now. We'll see if the splitter can do it. And if it doesn't, then I'll talk about what to do next. So as expected, the splitter could not break through that knotty side because it was positioned directly against the wedge, which is what I was expecting. That will happen at times. So what you do when that happens is just let go of the motor start button and let go of the actuation lever and just let everything retract back. From here, you may find that the piece of wood is stuck in the wedge. In order to get it unstuck, I just take the backside of a hatchet. This is actually a drywall hatchet, if I'm not mistaken, but it would simply tap on it, let it come back, and then from here you can reposition your piece. So I'm going to try splitting on the other side, right? So the knotty side of the wood is right here, and the more straight grain side of the wood is over here against the wedge, and I have a feeling that we're going to be able to split right through the piece now. We'll see though. And we split right through it as expected, and no issues there. From here, I'm just going to continue to split this piece down. You know, I like to have some smaller pieces, but also I like to have a lot of larger pieces, fewer trips in the house, and less loading in the firebox. A final tip I have for you, if you find yourself faced with a really knotty piece of wood, I recommend trying different spots on the log. You know, keep flipping it, keep trying, and if you find after a while you cannot get through the piece of wood, it's not worth destroying your splitter over. Typically what I'll do, I'll either trash the piece, throw it in the compost pile, or I'll take my chainsaw and I'll rip right through the piece. And I do that actually quite often. You know, it's a little hard on the chainsaw, but I've rebuilt chainsaws before. Big deal. It is what it is. So anyway, I think that pretty much concludes today's video. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please drop a comment down below. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.